The Zoom lady has told us the recording is in progress. We are going to start letting everybody in. There we go. Okay. Welcome everybody to Raise Hell Texas at Home, where we look like we're wearing regular clothes on the top, but we're actually wearing pajama bottoms on the bottom.
It's supposed to be secret.
It's not anybody else on this. It's not anybody else on the Zoom video that's doing that, just me. Thank you guys for coming. We're going to get started here really quickly because we got started just a minute or two late, but we are live streaming on Facebook. We are also recording this Zoom and we're going to upload it to our YouTube page. We'll make sure that everybody has all the links to access this because we're going to have a great conversation today about organizing your friends and neighbors, making sure they get out to vote. And then Shri is going to take us through a training on exactly how we can do that with the 2 Million Texans project. So yay, welcome 2 Million Texans and Blue Action Dems. Thank you for joining us.
Jenna.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say I am super excited because Lana is one of my dear friends and Beto buddies from way back in 2018. She is somebody that I have modeled my own activism after. And I am so excited to join her here, and having Shri on and being able to actually meet him real live and in person is an honor. I have been a huge fan of his for a long time, especially the campaigns that he's run and all of the work that he has done in various administrations. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves because you will certainly do it much better than I would. But Lana, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. As Jenna said, and Jenna, thanks again for having us. And likewise, my friend, I'm so in awe of all you continue to do to make our state a better place and putting together this new organization and doing the important work that's going to be involved with it. But I'm the executive director of Texas Blue Action Democrats. We are essentially a neighborhood infrastructure organizing machine that started in Southwest Austin and has now grown statewide to encourage people to stay active in their own community and participate in civic engagement, not just in presidential election years, but every single year to show up and vote for those school board candidates, your city council members, and everybody in between. So that's what we're focused on. And as you mentioned, we're now partnering with Shri Kilcarney to roll out the largest relational organizing network in the country. And that sounds dramatic, but it is dramatic and it's true. So that's what we're doing.
I'm so excited. Shri, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So shout out to anybody from Houston. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. And then I went on to the University of Texas in Austin, where we are right now. And I'd originally spent 14 years overseas as a foreign service officer, but back in 2017, after a lot of things, but particularly after the Charlottesville Nazi rally, I decided I couldn't serve in the Trump administration any longer. So that's when I resigned and I came back home to Texas to raise some hell, because that's what we need to do when things are going wrong, right? And so I started out as one person, but then through a large group of people supporting us, at the end we had about 1,600 volunteers. I ran for Congress in Sugarland, Pearland, Katy, the suburbs of Houston. And one of the things that we were famous for at that time was, instead of running away from these attacks on immigrants that we saw happening all over the country, we actually turned that weakness and turned into a strength, because we canvassed and campaigned specifically to immigrants. In fact, we campaigned in 27 different languages, and that's one of the things we're most famous for. And another thing that we're going to get into is that we really use relational organizing in that campaign. And then after that campaign, where we cut the margin from 34.9 to 4.9, we cut it by 30 points. I went on to Georgia, where we had a runoff election for the entire U.S. Senate for Ossoff and Warnock. It was about 40 days, and a lot of people said we could not do it. They didn't think that Georgia could be turned blue. Well, I've got a tattoo to prove it right here that we did turn Georgia blue. I don't know if you can see, but there's a tattoo. It's dedicated to John Lewis. It says "Good Trouble." It's the first English tattoo I had. I had tattoos from my foreign service career, and then this magnolia right here. People said magnolias aren't blue, and I said, well, neither was Georgia until this year. And then they asked me, well, why don't you have a Texas tattoo? Because you are from Texas, not Georgia. And I said, just you wait. When we turn Texas blue, I'm going to get a big blue Texas across my chest. And that's what we're going to do this year.
We'll put it on
I
Facebook
love it.
Live, y'all. When it happens on November 9th, we're going to drag him down and make it happen.
Excellent. Can we live stream that on the Raise Hell Texas YouTube channel?
Yes, we'll live stream it everywhere.
If Beto can do the
Fantastic.
dentist, I'll do the tattoo chair, okay?
Yes, I love it.
There, yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, Leona, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of Blue Action? Because I love this story. It is a testament to people just getting out there saying, we need a change, and looking at their neighbor and saying, come on, let's go do this.
Sure. Well, I don't know what kind of audience we have here, but I'll just kind of go for it. After 2016, when they, decided to elect the grab them by the, what guy, our founder, who's actually on this call, Carrie Collier Brown, was at home on maternity leave with twins, y'all, and was really upset that, she lived in this gerrymandered part of Austin, which, like y'all see up in Dallas, right, where it had been red for decades. But the thing that she was frustrated about is that the Democrats weren't coming out and talking to them. Candidates weren't coming out. The party wasn't coming out. Nobody was making an effort in her neighborhood to turn out voters. And she knew she wasn't alone, that there were other progressive voters like herself. They just need to be engaged. And so, she sat down and wrote this manifesto for the Get Shit Done Club, and put it into action. And at her first meeting, through old school, knocking on doors, inviting people in the neighborhood to come to a meeting, 100 people showed up. And they decided to just do 9 precincts in their neighborhood, again, just old school canvassing, neighbor to neighbor, community organizing. And that brought us into 2018. And those 9 precincts then ended up flipping down ballot seats that had been red for 30 years, including Vicki Goodwin's House seat and Paige Ellis's city council seat. And those 9 precincts also ended up having the highest Democratic voter turnout in the state in that cycle. And again, that was an area that had been red for 20 to 30 years. And so once that happened, people were scrambling, like, how did y'all do that? What was it? And we birthed this chapter model, because the thing was, it wasn't anything new. It was just something we'd shied away from because people were too involved with TV ads and mailers and writing off the suburbs, right? And writing off these gerrymandered areas and assuming there were no voters. And so since then, we now organize in Houston and El Paso and the Hill Country and, most of Austin, and we'll continue to grow for years to come, because what people want is that connection. People want to engage with the people in their neighborhoods. It's so much easier to show up at the door and talk to somebody about who's going to fill the pothole down the street, or who's going to sit on your kids' school board, than it is sometimes to talk about what's happening at the federal level, which you feel like you have no control over, right? So really bringing people together over values that they share to make where they live better is really what this is about. And it's really bringing voters to the table in Texas.
I love that. I love that. Carrie, actually, the neighborhood that she started this in was my old neighborhood in Austin. So I have a soft spot for the work that she did there. We were probably a door that she knocked on. But tell me a little bit, when you are organizing a new community, and Shri, this question is for you too, because you were just a phenomenal organizer in your campaigns. When you talk to somebody new who has never done this work before, what is the typical answer you hear? What is the pushback that you hear? Because I can't imagine everybody is excited and just opens the door, puts on their tennis shoes, and walks out.
I mean, for us, what we find so much, Jenna, I think, is this fear that you're going to be confronted with somebody that does not share your values, right? And it's going to be this confrontation at the door with somebody that hates who you are, or doesn't believe in the lifestyle that you live, or doesn't think you should get to pray in the church that you want to pray in. But the thing is, that's not what we do. we're not out here asking people to talk to folks on the other side of the aisle or folks that they don't agree with, right? We're asking people to go out and connect with people that do share their values and invite them in. And so our biggest, to answer your question, the biggest pushback, I think, is fear around the conversations that people are going to be asked to have. And I think the real value in the work that we do is empowering and educating the people that we're asking to go out and knock on doors about the issues and about ways to engage their neighbor. And then also, promising them that we're not going to send them someplace where they're going to end up in a situation that's not safe for them, or, ends up causing some kind of trauma for them.
And, I'll say,
no, that's great.
So in my experience, my campaign relied very heavily on immigrants, especially the Asian community. And one of the reasons why it was so different in our area, if y'all have been down to Sugar Land, it's heavily Asian. I think it's about 50% Asian down there in that town, but they weren't being campaigned to. Nobody was actually asking them to participate at all in democracy. It doesn't mean that they didn't care about the issues. In fact, I remember the week before Trump got elected in 2016, I was at a wedding. People were complaining about Trump. They were saying, "Oh my God, this is so awful." And I asked them, "Has anybody here made a phone call?" And they're like, "Well, no, I haven't done that." "Has anybody here knocked on a door?" Like, "Well, I wouldn't even know how to do that." Has anybody done anything about what's going on? And nobody at the wedding. They were all complaining about what was going on, but nobody had done anything. But the problem is they didn't know what to do. People feel this angst. What do we do when we see things like, people freezing to death in Houston after Winter Storm Uri? When we see children having to live in fear every single day because our government won't do anything about it. Or when we see women in fear for their lives right now because doctors don't even know if they can treat them or not because of the new law, people feel like they have to do something. And a lot of us felt that for the first time back in 2016 and 2017. And what we are doing is we're giving them something to do about it. Take all that fear, that angst, that emotion that you have, and channel it together into community action. And this is the most basic thing. We've been community organizing for centuries, but sometimes it takes a little bit of extra work, maybe a new piece of technology, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, to allow us to take all of that energy. When Beto goes out there and he talks to these gigantic crowds out there, I told Lana, it's like the sun, right? The sun can shine on all of us, but all of us, we have to have the solar panels. We have to have batteries, something to channel that energy into powering this entire state. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. How do we channel that energy? I saw it, so many people coming out for the very first time. And when you give them something to do, people really do appreciate it.
Well, and I think
I
to
love
that,
that. And
I'm sorry, Jenna, go ahead. I was just going to say that people need to be invited in. They have felt excluded, and they have felt like their vote doesn't matter. That their values don't necessarily matter. And so what's the point? And they're busy, right? Jen, I know you and I are both parents, and we're working mothers. And it's like, we have to find a way to let people know how much it matters. And nobody can do that in a way, unlike a family member or a friend or a neighbor talking to you about it and how important it is for you to engage.
I completely agree. At Raise Hell Texas, kind of one of our theories of change is that when you talk to voters, when you talk to Texans just about individual issues, more often than not, we agree on where we need to go. And so when you talk about being afraid of getting involved because you're going to meet resistance, or you're going to talk to somebody who hates what you think and what you say, the odds of that are actually kind of low.
Right.
And so more often than not, you're going to be talking to people who just don't know how to get involved, because sometimes the lack of knowledge is the biggest bar to volunteering and organizing, is just having no idea where to connect. So I love the work that y'all are doing, both through Blue Action as well as 2 Million Texans. It's such an easy way for people to get involved from just wherever they're standing, and to talk to people that they know and they care about in a way that these people can relate to, and from a person that they can trust. And that is going to make all the difference. So why don't you guys tell us about 2 Million Texans?
Sure. Do you want me to start, Sheree, or do you want to go? Whatever, should we go? Well, we have been so proud and fortunate to grow this organization of Texas Blue Action and really get involved in this neighborhood infrastructure building. And this year, we thought we'd been circling the idea of relational organizing and how to get involved in it. But I knew enough to know that I couldn't be the person to run it, right? Like that somebody with some experience needed to do it. And we were fortunate to have Shri reach out to Carrie, and then we got on a call and it was like, this is the missing piece. This is the thing that has needed to happen in Texas. It's the next level of organizing. And so it took no time at all to say, we absolutely need to do this project. In fact, as the executive director, and Jenna, you can probably relate to this, when I get off most calls, my thoughts are, how am I going to pay for this? When I got off my first 2-hour call with Shri, I was like, it doesn't matter. We can't afford to not pay for this because it's what's going to help us win, not just in November, but cycle after cycle after cycle, because what we're building is going to go on, for decades in Texas and really change the face of what we're doing. And so, Shri came with this wealth of experience from what he had done in his own campaign and in Georgia. And he can tell you all about that and why it's so important that we're doing it in Texas now.
Sure.
I love it. Shri, please tell us.
No, absolutely. And thank you for that, Lana. Thank you for bringing me back home. I was in the Biden administration for a year and a half, but I tell you, it's much better to be home here in Texas because, around the country, when people say, oh, can Texas turn blue? Texas is a red state. We know that Texas is not a red state. Texas is a non-voting state. And as we just saw just now, apparently, Alaska has elected its first Democrat statewide in over 50 years. Georgia just turned blue last year. We are next, y'all. We are next, y'all. And this is not a pipe dream. We're not just blowing smoke. I'm a data guy. I'm a numbers guy, right? So here are the numbers. In 2018, you know how much Beto lost statewide by to Ted Cruz? 2.6%, 2.6%, y'all. In 2020, we needed to take 9 seats that we could have taken the entire Texas State House. You know how many votes would have needed to flip the entire Texas State House? 12,000. And how many people didn't vote? How many registered voters didn't vote? 6 million people, 6 million people. This is how close we are, folks. You all can do it. Everybody watching right now, you literally have the power in your hands. In fact, the power is right here in your phone. And I'm going to show you how in just a second, because what we talked about just now, what Lana talked about, relationships, that's the basis of relational organizing. We need to treat people like human beings, not like strangers and not like numbers. Now, you may think, well, what could my relationships do, right? Okay, all of my friends are Democrats. They all vote. Every single person I know votes. I can't do anything just by talking to my friends and family. Wrong. You are wrong. And I can tell you, every single one of us, including Lana, including myself, including Beto, if I looked through their phone, they would have somebody that didn't vote. There were people who were phone banking for me every single day of my of early vote in my campaign. And when I pick up their phone, there were people who had not voted yet who were in their phone. And I said, please do not call another stranger until you call your own people first. And we just don't know. That's the thing. We don't know who it is who is not voting. I'll give you an example. There was somebody who had a meet and greet for me at their house. They had my yard sign in front of their house. And I checked the voting record, and guess what? They did not vote. And when I called them afterwards, I asked, how could you possibly have my yard sign and not vote? You know what the answer was? Oh, I was busy that week. I thought somebody else would do it though. You are somebody else. You are somebody else. And so that's the point. How do we find these people? These people, like there was a member of my own family who did not vote until they were 40 years old. And the only reason they voted, it wasn't because of an advertisement. It was because of me, because I asked them to come out and vote for the first time. They were neither Republican nor Democrat. They were one of those 6 million people that are out there. So you all have these people in your phone right now. But how? How do we know who in our phone are the ones that we need to get out to? Well, do you mind if I just share my screen? I can actually show you really quickly. And once you see—
absolutely. Take it away.
Why were we not doing this before? Why have I never seen this before? And well, you're going to see it now, and you're going to do it now. Every single person out there, we're going to get 30,000 people doing this. So if you see my phone right here, can everybody see it? We're good. So there's an app that everybody can download on iPhone or on Google Play Store called Reach Progressive Organizing. This app has been used in campaigns around the country, including in my campaign in 2018 and 2020, and then in Georgia, where we flipped the entire Senate. So if you open up this app, it'll look something like this. It's blue with a white ballot box, and there's a campaign. You got to pick our campaign. It's called the 2 Million Texans campaign. And some of you may have block walked before. In fact, some people on the Zoom right now with us may have block walked before. So you may have seen an app like Minivan, right? And you can look up someone in the voter file. So if I just want to look up somebody, and I will just use myself as an example, I can look up and see if there's anybody in the entire state of Texas named Srinivas Kulkarni, because that's my name. Oh, look, there's actually 2 Srinivas Kulkarnis, which was not true when I was a kid. That means Texas is becoming more diverse. But I am not the Srinivas Kulkarni who's 64 in Frisco. I'm the Srinivas Kulkarni. Well, I'm not going to tell you my age, but I'm registered in Sugar Land, and I'm going to click right there. And now this may look very familiar to you. You can ask if somebody wants to volunteer. You can ask if they're going to be a Democrat or Republican. You can ask what their issues are. In fact, you can ask what other languages they speak. That's something we put in there. But the most important button in this app, which is very different than Minivan or anything that most of y'all have ever used, is this one at the top left. That button says add to my network. Why is that the most important button? Because when you click add to my network, you are not giving the campaign your phone number. You're not giving the campaign your email. And that's by design, because if we're taking your phone numbers and emails of your friends and family members, we are doing this wrong. We're doing this wrong. We do not want to contact your friends and family members. What we want to do is want you to contact your friends and family members. So the only piece of information that you need to give us, but it's the most important piece of information in the world, is who do you know? And in this case, the person I know is myself. So I'm going to click myself. And as soon as I click that button to add that relationship, you have just added one more person to the 2 million Texans network. And we are doing this all over the state right now. We've done this in El Paso. We've done this in Austin, all over Houston, Fort Bend County, Brazoria County. We just did it in Dallas. We will come to your county or your town. We will do this virtually every single day into the election. And the reason it's so important that you tell us who you know is because some of those people you know right now are being phone banked by other volunteers right now. Some of those people that you know, your cousin, your classmate, your next door neighbor, your coworker, they are having their doors knocked on by volunteers right now. How much easier would it be, rather than sending people out to find everybody in your phone book, to just tell us, these are the people in my phone book right now. And you can do all of that from your phone. In fact, I tried it the other day. I went in and I looked at my phone book here. And if I want to select everybody in the 713 area code, I'm from Houston, I can keep telling people, keep telling the campaign who I know from my phone, literally at home, while I'm watching football, while I'm waiting for the doctor. I can click on a person's name and I can say, yes, I know them, add to my network. I know him too, add to my network. I know him as well, add to my network. I have just block walked 3 people in less than 15 seconds. In fact, I timed it the other day and I was waiting for a train. And so I was like, well, what can I do while I'm waiting for a train? You know what? I can canvas people right now. I can add people to the 2 million persons network. And I canvassed 30 people in less than 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes. Now, some of you may be saying, wait a minute, that's not canvassing somebody, right? Canvassing somebody means walking from door to door. It means we have to all be sweating in our t-shirts. We have to roll up our shirts, right? And that is important. And everybody who's doing that work, I'm so grateful for you. I did it too. I used to knock on doors myself. I knocked on over 12,000 doors in my first campaign. The soles of my shoes would fall off and I would post it on Facebook Live, and then people would mail me shoes so I could keep knocking on more doors. So thank you for doing that work. What we're talking about here is helping that work go farther, making sure that every single hour of your precious time is spent in the most effective way possible. So if you have people in your phone who you know that they don't need to be phone banked, they don't need to be block walked by anybody else other than you, just tell us who you know, and then tell other people to come and do this training too. So we're doing this training every day. You can recruit other people. And this is the other beautiful thing about relational organizing. So if, also I'm gonna show you something right here. So if you do an hour or 2 hours of block walking, you can knock on twice as many doors, right? If you do 2 hours of phone banking, you can make twice as many calls. But if you add 200 people to our network, is that twice as good as 100? No, it's more. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because when you add 100 people to our network, guess what? Some of those people are going to be very strong Dems. Everybody here knows somebody who's a strong Dem, who absolutely wants Beto to win, and Democrats all the way down the line. Well, guess what you're going to do? When you get to that person, you're going to recruit them to come and do this too. You're going to say, hey, I need your help. I need your network to get added to my network and to Lana's network, and put Beto's network and Lena Hidalgo's network and Greg Casar's network and Rodney Ellis's network. And when we put all of our networks together, you see that the people that actually need to be canvassed are just the holes in between. And the more networks that we have, the smaller those holes get. That's what we're talking about, putting our networks together. And that's what we did in Georgia, because people said, how could you possibly do this on such a large scale? Well, in Georgia, we had 40 days. We had 40 days to get the entire state organized. And people said we could not do it. It was too slow. Well, actually, this was the fastest thing we ever did, because the first week we had 800 voters in the network. The second week we had 1,500 voters in the network. How could that possibly make a difference in a 2 million person election? But here's the thing. When you start recruiting your friends in every single wave, it does not grow linearly. It grows exponentially, so that we were doubling our network every 5 days. 1 week out from the election, that 800 voters had become 60,000 voters. 5 days out, it was 80,000 voters. On election day, it was 160,000 voters. And what would have happened if that election had gone on another 3 weeks? Would they have gotten to 1 million voters? Well, that's what we're here to find out right now, because just 3 weeks ago, we launched the 2 Million Texans project. We're going to put together 2 million people across the state to make sure that we flip out Greg Abbott and everybody all the way down the line through your friends and family members. And here's the cool part. We thought that we were going to follow the trend line of Georgia. About the first week, we would get about 1,000, 1,500 voters in the network. Maybe the second week, 3,000. So by now, we should have had about maybe 6,000 voters according to that pattern. I want you all to take a look at your screen right there. See the top there? That's where we are. 18 days out, we were at 38,571 voters and counting. And I try to refresh it all the time. Oh, look at that. While we were talking, 5 more voters. There are people right now. In fact, there could be people sitting on this Zoom while I am talking. They are canvassing people, because all you're doing is you're telling us who you know. Tell us who you know. It is so simple. It's so easy. You think it couldn't possibly win, but guess what? It is the most effective thing we have seen, more effective than anything else you've ever done. And it's the easiest, and it's the thing that can spread the fastest. Young people can do it. Senior citizens can do it. Immigrants can do it. We can canvass people in our own languages, all of this from your mobile phone. And I'm telling you right now, 38,576, you know, when we were at that number in Georgia, we were at that number in Georgia 9 days before the election. Y'all, we have 10 weeks left to go. 2 million is not going to be a ceiling. 2 million is a floor. And here's the real kicker, y'all. If I phone bank Jenna today, or Jenna's cousin, let's say I phone banked your cousin today, Jenna, how many times do I have to call her again before we get to November? Probably 3 or 4 more times to remind her to come to vote. But if I ask Jenna, hey, Jenna, who's your cousin? How many times do I have to ask you in October, are they still your cousin, Jenna? Are they still your cousin? Never. I never ask you again, one time. So you go do this, you add your network to ours. It is built. That 2 million Texan structure is there. It's there for every candidate all the way down the ballot. And it's there after November 8th, because on November 8th, we are going to come out 2 million Texans strong. We are going to turn this entire state blue. But then what are we going to do on November 9th? Lana knows. On November 9th, we're going to start building for November of 2024. We don't have to rebuild 2 million Texans. November 9th of this year is when we start building 6 million Texans for November of 2024. And if we get 6 million Texans, Republicans will never get elected in this state again. That's what this is about.
Talk infrastructure to me, Sheree. I love it. Lena, you are muted.
Y'all, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Jenna, for flagging that. You would think after 2 years on Zoom, we would know those things. But anyway, one of the things that I want to say that I think is really important for people to understand in this program is that, you know, the app is not the relational organizing part of what we're doing here. The app allows us to house the network and the information around what everybody knows or who everybody knows. The relational part of what we're going to do in this program, and this is one of my favorite things when we talk about this, is that as we go into early voting, what our data team is going to do is reach out to every individual that has joined here and send them a list of people in their network and say, hey, your cousin, your brother, your sister has not shown up to vote yet, do you mind sending them a message that's in your own voice? You can call them, you can email them directly from the app, you can text them and say, hey, just so you know, there's an election. It's really important to me that you show up and vote, right? So they will not, to Shree's point, be getting endless phone calls from strangers or having additional strangers knock their doors, because it'll be updated in the voter file, as we go along. And the next day, we're going to send you a new list, Jenna, that says, hey, Jenna, look, you've still got 19 people in your network that haven't shown up. Do you think you could follow up with them and give them a reminder? And that's the relational part of what we're doing here that I think is so valuable. And this tool isn't new. It's been used by campaigns before, but just to support what Shree was saying a second ago, when those campaigns are over, their network and all that information dies with the campaign, right? It hasn't gone anywhere. And so the way that this project is so innovative is that we are doing it just as a GOTV effort and building a network across the state versus having it be candidate focused. So we can keep it alive forever and in action forever. And we will not have to ask people to ever enter their information again. It will live there and go on. And so every cycle, we're going to do better and be more successful. And we're going to be able to work smarter instead of harder. And we can quit banging our head against the walls, doing all the things that don't work.
Yeah, and just to reemphasize what Lana said, this is not a texting program, and the app is not relational organizing. Relational organizing is human nature. It's our relationships, communicating with people that you actually have some kind of connection with. Relational organizing is very old. It's what we used to do in the 1800s before we had TV and we thought we could just treat everybody like a score and like a number. You had to do this neighborhood by neighborhood. The difference in what we're doing right now is the scale. Nobody has ever tried to do this on the scale of millions of people all connected in this giant structure, this giant phone tree, this giant blue wave that's going to go across this state together. Nobody has stitched these networks together through people who have common interests, but they don't realize who they know, and they don't realize that we're all connected to each other. And so that's what the app is allowing us to do. It's allowing us to stitch Jenna's network and my network and Lana's network all together so that we can all work smarter, so we can save our campaign's money, and not just Beto's campaign. So you can save your state rep or your justice of the peace or your drainage commissioner, because a lot of these local candidates, they don't have the money to do this. How are we going to help them to work smarter, not harder? By stitching their networks together, by leveraging each one of their resources so we can do this collectively. It's helping to save volunteer time. Anybody who's been out there knocking doors like I have right with you, like you are out there in the hot sun every day. You do not want to knock on an extra door that you did not have to. And if you're a voter, if you're already on our side, you do not want somebody to knock on your door 20 times or call you 20 times. You would rather you call somebody else because you know who you're voting for. And to answer some of the questions on the side there, I also saw people ask, well, who should we add? Should we add Republicans? Should we add Democrats? Should we add people in between? And the answer is yes. Yes, you add all of the people to the network. The reason that you tell us who you know is because, like we said, if somebody is a strong Democrat already, what do? We recruit them into the network. But if somebody is a strong Republican, what do? We add them to the network. Why? Because we do not want somebody wasting their precious time knocking on this person's door who wears a MAGA hat every day, and instead of wearing a vote t-shirt, wears a Alex Jones was right t-shirt. If you know that person, your neighbor, is like that, save that volunteer's precious time by just telling us that you know they're Republican. And if someone has moved out of the state, do we add them to the network? Yes, we do. Why? Because I found my brother in the voter file when I did this. I added him to the network because someone has been trying to call my brother every year for the last 10 years to get him to vote. And my brother's been in Washington, D.C. the whole time, right? So you are helping us save that precious time. And especially if someone is deceased, do we add them to the network? Yes, because why? If your partner just passed away, the worst thing in the world is to have somebody calling your house saying, oh, they need them to show up and vote, and reminding them. You are saving all of these people. You're saving all these voters. You're saving these volunteers. You're saving the campaign, and you're saving Texas.
Well, and I'm sorry, Jenna, we've totally are dominating here because we get so excited about what we're doing. We've been
I love it. Get after it.
Doing this, and the enthusiasm and the excitement that people have for it, it's like bringing a lot of hope. And so we're just so fired up right now, and it's just going even better than we could have imagined. But one of the things I really want to share about this project and that came out of the first conversation that Shree and I had was the importance of what this can do also, not only to put our networks together on a personal level, but all of the orgs and activists and candidates that have been doing this phenomenal work across Texas that are duplicating efforts or not able to work together, we can all now come together in this network together to do this work, share this data, and stop, like replicating efforts and wasting time. And so we really saw it as the big bench builder, that the door's wide open and everybody has a space here to do this work so that we can handle this massive state, and that everybody has a place to house this information to get out the voters in their neighborhoods and in their families.
And Jenna, have you ever had this experience where you're knocking on doors and you see somebody has just dropped some literature on the door that you're about to knock, and it's somebody else? In my campaign, it was Beto volunteers, or it was unions, or it was someone else coming through the same neighborhood. Sometimes you see them, literally I've seen them on the same street. We're coming right at each other, and it may be funny, but you know who it's really funny to? It's funny to Republicans, because we are crisscrossing our own neighborhoods rather than working smarter and leveraging our networks. See, each one of us has a unique network, and if we don't take advantage of that, then we are leaving votes on the table. And so rather than working harder by duplicating effort, we are truly coordinating this case, because you know what, Jenna, I may be able to knock on the same door you just knocked on, but I cannot actually tell Lana or tell the campaign, Jenna's cousin is my cousin, because it's your cousin. And you cannot tell Lana, oh, Shree's cousin is my cousin. Each one of us has something very unique to bear here, and every single one of us. And that means everybody, a volunteer, it means a candidate, especially all those down ballot candidates. It means elected representatives in Georgia. You know who we had doing this as well? We had mayors doing this. We had county commissioners doing this. We had a sitting congressman do this, because if someone is in a congresswoman's phone, the last thing that Lana needs to do is go knock on their door or call them, because they're in that congresswoman's phone already. We should not be wasting our time reaching out to these folks. In fact, it became so fun. I showed you those rankings just now. Actually, if you let me share my screen again, you can see every single day we have a ranking that you can check, and you can see who is at the top of the rankings for that day. And so this is all time, and you can see, does anybody know who Robin Fulford is? She's running against Dan Crenshaw in Houston, and every time somebody comes up, so I'm number 3 right there, every time I pass her up, she decides she's going to add a few more people from her network and grow the network even larger, because she wants to be in first place, and she puts her name in as Robin Ketchup Time Fulford. But we did this in Georgia. 2 different county commissioners, they would add 800, then 900, then 1,000, then 1,100, then 1,200, and they kept growing the network like that. So let's try to have a healthy competition among everybody who's raising hell all over this state. I want to see, folks from Dallas saying we're going to add more people to 2 Million Texans than folks from Houston, which isn't going to happen. Houston is going to win this competition. And I'm just saying that because, because we are.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yes. Two-time world.
Oh, them's fine words, Shree.
Right.
No, but seriously, y'all, you have this power in your hands. You can make it fun. I had a friend who said, wait a minute, I have more people than are in my phone. Guess what? I have people on Facebook that I don't have in my phone. Let me add them too. I have people on Instagram. He started looking looking at his neighborhood. So look, if I look right here, if I just look up who's on my street, this is the street that I grew up in Houston. I can look up and see what voters are there on my street. And even if you don't have them in your phone, what if you see them at the pool? What if you see them walking the dog? What if you see them when you're out having a cup of coffee and you realize, wait a minute, I could just go over and talk to my neighbors, and I could make sure that they're part of my network too, because guess what? If they live in your neighborhood, you have a relationship with them. Even if you haven't talked to them, your kids go to the same school. You use the same streets, you walk on the same roads. So reach out, knock on their door and say, hey, neighbor, would you like to live in a better city? Would you like to live in a better county? Would you like to live in a better state? Well, let's do something about it together.
I love that. One thing that we are really big on at Raise Hell Texas is building community, and understanding how important community can be in making Texas a better and safer place to live. So I love leveraging community. I love creating community. I also am ridiculously competitive, so I love gamifying everything. So that's great.
Well, we'll be watching for you on there, Jenna.
Yes, I know. I'm
watching.
very excited when he
Hold
pointed
on a
that out.
second.
I'm like,
Jen,
well, I
you said
knew
you're
it at
competitive, so
midnight.
I'm going to be looking tonight before midnight. You better pass up Robin Fulford and take #1 spot in the whole state. I'm looking for you, Jen.
I
Okay,
get so
okay.
excited when I
I'm
see
doing it.
people on there. Like the other day, Carrie Marshall all of a sudden popped on and was like, 300 people, 400 people. And I was like, Carrie is just like, and so I text her and I'm like, Carrie, I see you, you know, I see what you're doing. And she's like, I'm in the rabbit hole. I can't stop. And I'm like, it is like, I love it.
I love it.
I want
Yeah,
to
I'll
see
turn
actually
on Golden
who's
Girls
top
and
three.
add some stuff to reach.
This is just for today, not all time. So do you see anybody that you recognize, Lana?
These are just for today.
This is just for today, right?
And you know, she's been showing up at a ton of trainings, and look, she's got 42 people on there today. So that's super exciting. And we've got, let's see, who else is on there that has been coming? David's showing up. I see him on there, and John.
Several. So when you come to these trainings, like I said, when you do it once, you could do it from your home, but you know what? People keep coming back because a friend bank is even more fun than a phone bank, right? Because a friend bank, what you're doing is you're competing against the other people on the friend bank to see who can actually add more friends to the bank every day, which is, trust me, it's actually the most fun you could do and the easiest thing you could do and the fastest thing you could do, all for one easy low price of free.
Of nothing.
Free.
That's actually a big
free.
thing.
Excellent.
People ask me, how much does this cost? And I said, to you, nothing. The only thing you're paying for is in context. Just tell us who you know, and then bring other people who will tell us who you know, and we will do the rest. That's the entire program. All you do, if you're a down ballot candidate, if you're an organization like Swing Left or Indivisible, or March for Our Lives, or any one of these organizations, we want to train your people. If you are running for Justice of the Peace, or you're running for constable or state rep, we want to train your people. We want to train everybody across the state who wants a better state. And all you have to do is show up and tell us who you know.
Well, and
I love it.
You know, some people show up sometimes because there's lots of questions, right? Like you don't feel like you have to pick this up right away. I mean, I've been through multiple trainings now and I still feel like I learned something every time. So please come to any of our trainings. Like Sheree said, we do virtual and in person and all the things to help people feel really comfortable with the app.
And I see people sometimes in the app, there's a chat, and it's a really active chat, right? So you can see people are asking questions every single day. And every time we get close to a milestone, then people say, oh, we're getting close to 25, getting close to 26. And you'll see it speed up because everybody wants to be the person that gets us over the hump right there. And people just they keep scrolling. Okay, recharge. The other night, I was right before midnight. And we finally hit 26K right at midnight. And you can see everybody was celebrating. So it becomes this fun game, but the game is democracy. That's what it is. And we're doing it in a way that actually brings people together rather than separates people. It's doing it in a way that makes it easier for people to do work. Because if you have a busy schedule, if it is hard for you to show up at a specific time and a specific date in a specific place, you can still do this. You're still with us all over the state. If you are a young person, young people under the age of 30 actually had the most impact on this program. And I'll explain to you why. Have you ever tried to get a 19-year-old by knocking on their door? Try knocking on their dorm door at UT. Try knocking on their parents' door. Sometimes their parents are Republicans and you don't want to out them, right? How do you get a 19-year-old? Well, they sometimes have each other's numbers, but sometimes they don't even have each other's numbers. How does a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old actually know how to get a hold of their friends? On Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. So if they don't have each other's phone numbers, how is the Democratic Party going to have their phone numbers, right? The best way to get them out is to let those young people do it. And even people who aren't 18, we gave lists of registered voters who were 18 to 25 around a high school. So Jenna, where did you go to high school, Jenna?
I went to Pine Tree High School in Longview, Texas.
Okay, Pine Tree High School. So if you have 1,018 to 25-year-olds registered in the precinct right around Longview High School, where did they probably go to high school?
Probably Pine Tree.
Probably Pine Tree, right? So what does that mean? That means that either somebody who just graduated from Pine Tree or somebody who's 16 years old who's still going there right now, even if they don't know them, guess what? They are connected by at most 2 degrees of separation, which means you give them that list. And we did this before in Georgia, and we're going to do this for every high school in the state. We're going to circle every high school. We're going to give these lists to 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds and say, go get them, go find them on TikTok, on Instagram and Twitter. And guess what? In Georgia, these high school kids could find 19 and 20-year-old voters that the campaigns, the Warnock campaign and the Ossoff campaign, they couldn't find these voters in 12 months. These kids found them in one day. That's how powerful this is.
That's amazing. I love that. So we can, just as a clarification, it's not just people that are in your phone, but it's also people that you're connected with on social media.
Yep, this is not a texting program.
Fantastic.
It's not a texting program.
Yep.
This is a relationship program. So it could be someone you're connected to on social media. It could be somebody that you are connected to because you see them every day. If the way that you contact someone is by email, then just contact them by email. If the way you contact them is by Facebook Messenger, Facebook Messenger. There was there was one of our guys on training the other day. He said, "Oh, I can't find the phone number of my friends. You know, they're in Corpus Christi. I've known them for 20 years, but like, what do I do? What do I do?" And I said, "Wait a minute. How do you get a hold of them anyway?" He's like, "Well, I talk to them on Facebook Messenger every day." And I said, "Well, then just talk to them on Facebook Messenger today and tell them they need to do this program along with us. Just recruit them, because if you write letters to your friends, if you send carrier pigeons every day, that's fine. When we get to October, and if your friends don't vote, I want you to send out 10 carrier pigeons to their house and say, vote, vote, vote right now. However you communicate, that's fine, because it's not the method of communication, it's the relationship that we care about."
I love that. I love that. And tell me, before we take some questions from our group that we've got here on Zoom, what is the impact of talking to your friends and neighbors about this versus a stranger showing up at your door?
Sure. Well, so you can answer that two ways, right? You can answer that through common sense, right? So if you had not voted in 2018 and 2020, who is the best person to actually change your behavior? Is it a stranger, or is it someone you know? Is it your cousin? Is it your neighbor? Is it your classmate, your coworker? Of course, it's all about trust, because when people lose trust, they lose trust in things like the media. They lose trust in the courts. That right now, people lose trust in our elections themselves. This is what happens to democracies, right? This is how I've served overseas in countries where democracy died. We are not just talking about winning elections, y'all. We are talking about reinvigorating American democracy in our own communities. People need to feel that there's some reason why they show up to vote. They need to know that when they show up, something is going to change. If we're going to cut child poverty in half, if we're going to make our streets safer, if we're going to make sure that women have control over their own bodies again, they need to make that connection, and we need to make that connection for them. The same reason that you are passionate to be here today, you need to get that to other people. But I told you there's two answers to that. That's the common sense answer, the qualitative answer, but there's also a quantitative answer. In Georgia, we had an increase in turnout of 4% by doing this. What did I say the margin was for the entire state in Texas in 2018? 2.6%, 2.6%. And by the way, that 4%, with some groups, it was even higher. So with young people, we got it up to 9%, with low propensity voters. And guess what? If you think, I live in a Democratic area, everybody in my neighborhood is Democrat. Guess what? The lowest turnout districts in the entire state in 2018, the 11 lowest turnout districts were the 11 safest congressional districts in Texas. The whole state was turning out at 47%. People who lived in safe blue districts were turning out at 31 or 32%. That was the entire margin. That was the ball game right there. So literally, it's just about telling people your vote does matter. Even if your state rep has already decided, you've had a Democratic state rep or a Democratic congresswoman for your entire life, your vote still matters, because all of those votes all across the state, it could have flipped the state. We could have knocked Ted Cruz out. We could have had a state legislature that actually looks like Texas and actually represents Texas. It doesn't look like the Republican Party, which is nothing like Texas, I tell you. And if you do that this year, if you just get out your friends and family members, we won't have a governor like Greg Abbott ever again in the state. That's the impact.
Love it. Well, you guys that are here on Zoom with us, I'm going to unshare your screen, possibly.
I was just hoping to see people, if there's some people watching, they might start going up the rankings, because as soon as people see their names, they're like, oh wait, I want to get to the top. People do every single day. People see themselves and they want to compete.
All right, we've got a couple of questions on our Facebook chat that Amanda has, one of our board members here at Race Hall Texas, has done a great job answering, but I'll go through some of those. But does anybody here on the Zoom have a question for Lana or Shri. If you do, you can just turn on your camera and we'll let you ask your question.
I'm muted.
Hi, Menaka.
My name is Menika. I was wondering, so once we, put all these contacts into the app, what contacts are you actually sending back to us to contact? People who like have not voted in like the last election, or who exactly are we contacting?
Sure. All right. Great question. And first of all, I want to make one thing very clear. I said this earlier, but I have to repeat it because it's so important. What's the number one concern people have about putting their contacts into a phone? Privacy, right? Privacy. And this app does not take your contacts at all. It doesn't take your phone numbers. It doesn't take your emails. I'll repeat that. We do not take your phone numbers or your emails. It doesn't even go up to the server. It stays in your phone because we don't need them. All we need is you. We just need to know that you know how to get a hold of them, whether it's through their phone or through a carrier pigeon. I don't care, right? But when you tell us that you know these people, what we're going to do on the data side is we're going to look at through all of your contacts. So some people have a lot of contacts. I don't know how many that you have in your phone, Jenna, or you have in your phone, but I have about 5,000 contacts in my phone. Do I need to call 5,000 people? No, I don't need to call 5,000 people. Maybe 4,900 of them, or 4,500 of them, say, are going to vote regardless, no matter what I do. But there's a certain group, like you said, about 500 people maybe, and that's actually a reasonable estimate out of my phone book, who would not vote if I didn't call them, or maybe would vote the wrong way if I didn't reach out to them, right? And so we're going to take that data and we're going to look for the exact same things that we would always look for, right? Who didn't, like you said, who didn't vote in 2020, or who voted in 2020 but did not vote in 2018, right? We're gonna look and see, who is the person that you need to talk to the most. And if somebody didn't even vote in 2020, what's probably going to happen is we're going to reach out to you and say you need to talk to them before October, because if they didn't even vote in 2020, then it's very unlikely that they're going to vote in October during early voting. However, even if they voted in 2018 and they voted in 2020 and we thought that they were going to vote, right? Like that guy with my yard sign in front of his house, who I was sure, if you had asked me, I would have bet you $1,000 that he had voted and he didn't vote. When are we going to find that out? When are we going to actually know for sure? Because it only happens, it's like a quantum particle. It collapses to reality on that very first day of early voting, which is October 24th. That's when the actual election starts. On that day, you are going to get an email with every single person in your network who did not vote. And not only you're going to get the people who didn't vote. So maybe you say, you know what? I know my friends. I talked to every single one of my friends and they are 100% going to vote. I'm that one person in the whole state who doesn't have a single person who didn't vote. Guess what? We're going to add a few people to your list. We are. So Jenna, if your friend, if you know all your friends, you talk to them all the time, they're all voting. Guess what? One of their husbands didn't vote. We're going to add them to the list. One of their kids didn't vote. We're going to add them to the list, because then you can talk to your friend and you can tell her, guess what? Your son didn't vote. Your husband didn't vote. Or guess what? Your neighbor. What if you have a neighbor who didn't vote? I know that Jenna doesn't know them, but you know who knows them? Your friend does, because they live next door. And even if they don't live next door, it's a perfect opportunity to go next door and say, hold on a second. Have you thought about voting this week? Because we're all going, come on down with us. It takes 5 minutes. That's how you organize a neighborhood. So that's exactly the data that you're going to get. And on top of it, you can look yourself. In fact, if you look in your phone right now, and I'll give you mine because I don't want to like embarrass anybody, but I can show you right now on my phone. I can show you what my own voting history is. So if I find myself here, I can look at my survey questions, whether I volunteer. I can look at my contact info if there's other people registered here, but right here, you can look at my voting history and you can see which elections that I voted in. You can tell, and sometimes you might be surprised. You might think that your best friend voted in every election, and they didn't. And those are exactly the people that you need to remind to vote. So that's the kind of data that you're going to get. And then after early voting starts, I can't show you Texas because we haven't started yet, but where I can show you is Georgia. This was our campaign was called Flip the Senate Georgia. Now it's 2 million Texans in Georgia. You can see all of these people, my network voted, needs to vote. You will see every day right there on your phone which of your friends have voted and haven't voted. We're going to give it to you every possible way, because we're going to make sure that you get 100% of your friends out to vote. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Monica. Does anybody else have a question?
Oh, look at that. We're almost up to 1,200. See, it works, Jenna. It works. When I put it on the screen, people start.
All right, we'll keep the screen up then.
Yeah, look at that. 1,200.
For the betterment of Texas, we'll keep the screen up. Love it.
This is called multitasking.
We have an amazing local leader named Jenny who leads Richardson area Democrats. And in our Facebook chat, she is wondering if you speak to local clubs about this project.
Absolutely. Right. We've been training local clubs. We train precinct chairs. And the other day in Houston, in one day, we trained in the morning. We trained the statewide presidents of Texas Young Dems, and then we went to Chinatown in Houston. We went to Missouri City. We went to Clear Lake, and then we went back to Pearland. We'll train anybody. The one thing that I would say though is that a lot of times, I know it's hard to believe, but Democrats don't always coordinate amongst each other, right? Everybody says, "Well, my club is the best." Your club may be the best, but it's going to take all of us working together, and we need to work smarter, not harder, meaning we need to pull our resources together. So if you have a big space at your club, instead of saying like, this is my club and it's the only club, invite the other clubs in. Like don't bring 20 people, bring 200 people at one time. Invite all the other clubs and invite the other clubs that are not the Democratic clubs. Indivisible is not a Democratic club, right? March for Our Lives is not a Democratic club. There's organizations doing great work on immigrant rights, on criminal justice reform, on reproductive rights. Invite all of them in. Invite your state rep in who has, a few volunteers. Invite your justice of peace candidate who has one volunteer and they're knocking their hearts out every single day. Invite them in. And when that justice of the peace candidate comes, they may have, a couple hundred contacts and their volunteer may have a couple hundred, but when they add their network to the 2 Million Texans network, what they get back is 20,000 voters, 30,000 voters, all of the voters that are connected to all of you. So all of us win by connecting our efforts. So yes, clubs, organizations, anyone that cares about making sure that we turn Texas blue, we want to train them. Let's just bring them all together in one place and do as many people as possible.
So Jenny, please just email us at info@2milliontexans.com. We'd be happy to work on setting something up for you. I know Sri and I were in Dallas last night, which I know is not necessarily the Richardson area, but we'll be headed back to that part of Texas again on Monday. So would love to connect with you and see how we can help set something up for you. We also have a Facebook group, y'all, called 2milliontexans.com and or 2 Million Texans on Facebook. And it's a great place to ask questions, find out about the trainings, and be a part of watching this number grow and grow and grow. So please follow us there as well.
Yeah, but the only thing that limits us is time. We have less than 70 days left.
That's right.
We have 53 days left until early vote. So some people have said, well, like, can you come to this area and this area and this area? We could, but the better thing to do is for us to come to one place and everybody pool those resources, because the more people that we put through the system, we've got to train over 30,000 people between now and November, and we're going to do it. We will do it on Zooms. We will do it live. I will come to someone's backyard. I don't care where, all over the state. We've flown to El Paso. We've driven from north to south. But just also while we're helping y'all to work smarter, not harder, help us to work smarter and not harder by pulling your resources together, by pulling your people together, so that every day we're training as many people as possible. The most we've had, I think, in one day. What was the most we've had voters add to the network, Lana? I think
7,000.
We added 7
out of Houston, y'all. So you want to start a competition?
Yes,
here it is.
That's right.
Houston has topped it. So, who's going to be next in beating the 7,000 a day number?
That's right. Well, Houston has a big day coming on the 22nd. Houston is going to have a big college students day. We're going to train 1,200 college students in one location on one day and get 36,000 voters in one day. So if y'all really want a competition, here's the deal. Find a hall with 1,000 people and let's get people from all over DFW to come in. Let's pack that hall and see if y'all can beat Houston in that one day.
Love it. It looks like we've got a question from Justin.
Question, right? What about text banking and phone banking? Do we offer those?
Do you want to field that, Sri?
You're asking if we in 2 Million Texans do that?
No, text banking and phone banking. Are there opportunities?
Well, so there's a lot of phone banking opportunities. There are people who are doing phone banking and text banking all over the state. What this is doing is trying to reduce the number of people that need to be phone banked and need to be text banked. And I'm just, Lana, if you just bear with me, I'm going to say something. The reason that we have to phone bank people and the reason that we have to text bank people is we don't know who knows them. Those 6 million people who are not voting right now, if you just had a phone tree, if you had a directory and said, if you were in Facebook or Twitter and you could say, look, Justin, here's the people of those 6 million people who didn't vote that you would never have to do phone banking or text banking at all again, because you would just reach out to someone who knows them. That's what we're doing right now. We're creating a map, a phone tree, a social graph of the entire state. And so every time that you add people to the network, you are reducing the number of people who need to be text banked or phone banked by someone else today. You're actually saving them volunteer time, precious hours of their time. And so if we do this right, by 2024, there won't be any more phone banking or text banking in the whole state. It will be extinct because we have made a map of the entire state. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes sense, right?
No, thank you. Great question, Justin.
Laura in the chat says,
Hallelujah.
hallelujah. Isn't that right? Oh,
All right.
Somebody like
So
this.
Laura, yeah, we're waiting for
So
those
much phone
numbers.
banking
Let's
in
see those numbers
2020.
time, girl. We got to have Austin beat Houston here. I need your help.
We're at 12-2 now, so the numbers just jumped. 50 voters. That got people going. And when we said we're going to get rid of phone banking and text banking, the numbers just started.
We're like, I can do it. Let's do it.
I'm
Let's
in.
do it.
I'm in. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, we are at time. Is there anything that you guys would like to add? Any information that you would like the viewing public to know before we sign off?
I will drop a few links in the chat, everybody, and you know, so that you can reach out to us if you want to set up an event or ask questions, or just to get involved. But thank you so much for having us, Jenna. We're, you know, clearly very enthusiastic about this project. And I will say that, you know, when we decided to take this on, I thought, you know, are we really going to do this? And now that we're in it, I'm like, we're going to blow by this. Shree says it all the time, 2 million is going to become the floor instead of the ceiling. And I believe it because it's grown faster than I ever imagined. And like I said, every place we go, the enthusiasm and excitement and hope that we're seeing is just, I think, exactly what we need right now. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk to you. Thank you to everybody who has joined us tonight and who's joining Reach. And we look forward to seeing you on the app, I guess, as we say.
Yeah, and I just want to say again, thank you, Jennifer, for convening us here. That's what we really need. People like you to convene us to say, hey, everybody, this is so easy. Everybody who's in the group, in the Zoom right now, everybody's listening at home, you can do this. If you are a senior citizen, I was working with somebody the other day who was 80 years old. She had never downloaded an app before in her life. We had to figure out which one of her fingers actually opened the app, and she was able to download. You know what? She was able to get 1,000 contacts in off of her phone. If you are 16 years old and you said, I can't vote, guess what? You know people who are 18, you know people who are 19, you know people who are 20, you can help us with that too. If you are an immigrant, say you're an English as a second language speaker right now, you say, can I really canvas people? Actually, we need you. Some of the most important people are the ones who can canvas in Chinese, in Hindi, in Urdu, in Arabic, in Spanish, in Vietnamese, in Igbo, in Yoruba, all those languages that we talked about that we Texans, all of us speak. We need people who speak those languages to be able to canvas their own friends in those languages. So immigrants, young people who are super connected, senior citizens, even though it may take them a little bit longer on the app, guess what? They know the most people. So they can sit there and they can keep going, thousands, 2,000, 3,000 people. Every single person out there, don't worry. If you think that you can't do this, you can. We will work with you. We will train you. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that we get to 2 million Texans with your help. And so thank you for the work that you're about to do. And thank you, Jenna, for giving us this opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely. Delighted to do it. I am so excited. I love me some infrastructure, y'all. Like that is the whole reason that Raise Hell Texas exists, is to help organizations like you guys build up infrastructure in the state that outlast campaigns and then outlast candidates, and it helps neighbors talk to neighbors about the issues that Texans really care about. So this is our sweet spot, and we love to see it. So as we are wrapping up, thank you for joining Raise Hell Texas at Home today with 2 Million Texans. You can follow them at where, Lana?
You can follow us on our Facebook group, which is 2 Million Texans, and also on Twitter at Blue Action Dems. Of course, we have Texas Blue Action Dems on Facebook as well. And I'm dropping some links in the chat where people can sign up for our email list, which we'll use to keep everybody up to date on what we're doing. But joining the Facebook group, certainly, because that's the best place for all of us to be talking about what we're doing here. And we're about to put a thermometer on there so everybody can watch this grow.
That's fun. You can follow us at Raise Hell TX on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Lots of fun socials there. We get kind of salty some days because we're raising some hell, and why not? So follow us there, as we should, because Texas. So you can follow us there. You can also follow us on YouTube. We will be sending out an email with links to where you can find this recording and our other Raise Hell Texas at Home series. We've got some great stuff coming up. We've had some great stuff happen in the past, so please follow us there. Look for future speakers. Jen Ramos with Jolt Action and of the Jen Has Issues podcast. She's super funny. We're going to talk about organizing the Latinx community here in Texas with an amazing organization out of East Texas that's doing just that. We're going to have Shannon Watts and Moms Demand Action join us. We're going to have the amazing New York Times bestselling author Karen Walrond join us to talk about how we can focus our interests and focus the things that really light us up so that we can find joy in our activism. And my God, who doesn't need that? So we have some amazing speakers lined up for our Raise Hell Texas at Home series, and keep your eyes peeled for the beginning of the year when we start doing our in-person events that we are so excited about with some of our amazing partners with the AFIA Center, organizations like Texas Blue Action and 2 Million Texans. We'll check back in with them to see how our infrastructure building is going. Again, follow us, Raise Hell TX, on all of the socials. You can find us on the internets at raisehelltexas.org, where you can sign up to join our newsletter. You can donate to help us put on amazing programming like this. And oh my gosh, what else? I always forget something and then I get off and I'm like, oh, I forgot to mention that. I think that's it. I think we'll call it good. And then I'll just follow up with an email like I usually do.
That's perfect.
Excellent. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. 2 Million Texans on Facebook. Y'all get to growing that network, get to building that infrastructure in Texas, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everybody.